Hi, for my structure assignment, I had school. How does school perpetuate delinquency? There are many ways that education system perpetuates delinquency. Oppression can be experienced by class and race, leading to delinquency. Most studies indicate that poor performance in school and negative school experiences are significantly related to juvenile delinquency. In order for a behavior to be labeled as delinquent, a person or structure must have the power to do so. An example of structure that has a social power to label youth behavior as delinquent is schools. Schools often put a label on children as good or bad, and this can carry with them, causing a self-fulfilling prophecy and leading them to act in accordance to that label. Poor performance in school can be for a variety of reasons, and contrary to what people may think, it is not due to students being lazy and not trying usually. The structure of school. Schools are a bureaucratic structure, meaning that they have rules and regulations in place as well as a hierarchy. It is good to have rules and regulations in place, but schools can sometimes see students as cases rather than individuals. An example of this would be standardized testing. Treating students as cases causes them to feel alienated and frustrated, which can lead to delinquent behavior. Class inequalities within education. In relation to college, international research show that elite and prestigious universities are less likely to admit young people from poorer backgrounds. Many people blame lower class young people to have low aspiration, and that is why they do not attend college. This is a stereotype that causes a label to be put on these people, which is not true. Practical and emotional support from a lower class student's families regarding college is difficult because if the family has not been to a university, this can make the student feel like a fish out of water. Feeling this way can lead one to become disconnected and feel like they are not meant for college. Tracking and segregation by performance and class in elementary, middle, and high schools are another way of class inequalities within education. Students can be subjected to tracking, where students who are performing similarly in school get grouped into the same classrooms. If students are labeled as delinquent, they can be put into a classroom with other students alike and be under a strict teacher. This does not help them, but instead can hinder them even more. In the Disposable Youth book, he talks about how his high school authorities made sure that the wealthy kids and the poor white and black students did not have many shared spaces other than the cafeteria. This segregation and tracking led to the poor white and black students disliking school and getting disciplined harshly. There also can be segregation by creating school districts in order to keep poor children in one school and wealthy in another. Issues with school curriculums, racial trauma and curriculum violence. Curriculum violence occurs when schools teach history such as slavery by having students reenact it. This can cause racial trauma for these students that are portrayed in the history. Using this tactic also prohibits the students to learn about the event in its full context. Physical education can cause students to skip class, which is another issue with school curriculums. A physical education curriculum in Texas proved to be correlated with a higher percentage of absence and discipline rates instead of improving academic achievement or health that they thought it would. Truancy, dropouts, and pushouts. Students who don't perform well in school often are more truant. Students who are truant often are more likely to do drugs, drink alcohol, and be involved in gangs and violence. Negative school experiences lead to things like truancy and dropouts. Some may think that dropouts lead to the same things as truancy, but there's not facts to back that up. 1 in 3 Black and Latino children in the U.S. grow up in poverty. 1/3 of those children will not graduate high school. The stress that these children have often disrupt their schoolwork, causing bad grades, leading to them being pushed out of school. 2/3 of children that are pushed out of school will end up in the criminal justice system. Violence and vandalism. Since students often feel negative emotions connected with the education system, they can become violent and vandalize at school. However, violence and aggression can also stem from things other than negative emotions from school. Violence can show in many ways, and the violence can also be perpetrated towards staff or other students. A study of 253 classroom teachers in the Los Angeles public school systems in the 1970s indicated that 28% of those teachers actually had suffered physical assaults. Other than just physical violence towards staff, violent attacks towards students are also occur. Most approaches to stop violence and aggression have not worked, such as punitive policies, security measures, and universal programs. Punitive measures can even actually worsen the behaviors. Bullying. This is the most prevalent form of low-level violence in schools. Bullying highly affects the student's emotions on their learning environment and interferes with the ability to learn effectively. Bullying is related to higher rates of truancy and dropouts. This can also lead to violent behavior. Bullies are more likely to be involved in gangs and delinquent activities also. According to Whitted and Duper, 30% of students in grades 6 through 10 reported bullying others, being the target of bullies or both. And according to Bates and Swan, 28.9% of LGBTQ students reported being physically bullied over sexual orientation, 70.1% being verbally bullied, and 48.7% being cyberbullied over their sexual orientation. Zero tolerance and safety. Many schools opt to have police security to deter the acts of violence and other delinquent behavior. Many also have zero tolerance policies to deter drugs, guns, and violence in schools. These zero tolerance policies and police security leads to the school to prison pipeline. Using police to guard schools and zero tolerance seem to be helpful on the outside, but they can actually cause more delinquent behavior. Zero tolerance policies were made to focus on the issue of firearms, but now move towards the other behaviors such as not following simple rules or even disrupting. One example of the issues with zero tolerance policy from Bates and Swan is when a 7-year-old boy from New Jersey was charged with carrying a Nerf gun, in which he was charged with a criminal misdemeanor. School to prison pipeline. Zero tolerance policies and police in schools have shown to cause issues, and students can be in trouble for minor things. This can also lead to arrests. This is called the school to prison pipeline. In a study by Charles Bell, Black students expressed their feelings of being targeted for suspension and excessive school discipline, leading to their parents to leave the school district. Students can be suspended for things as small as having nail clippers in school. According to Charles Bell, the 2018 Government Accountability Office report found school officials subjected Black students to out-of-school suspension, expulsion, and arrest on school grounds at a disproportionate rate regardless of school type or the school's poverty rate. Black students often feel targeted because of their hair, dress, and music preference. Black boys and girls are suspended 3 times more than white students. Victor Rios has a theory called the youth control complex, where he interviewed African American and Latino boys that were being pipelined in the criminal justice system from school. Institutions and society work together to criminalize, stigmatize, and punish them, which is the youth control complex. Victor Rios states that social control that is brought on by the police is harsh, but that does not mean there should be no police, but it means that there should be better ways of policing than we have right now. Ways that schools can minimize delinquency. Alternative learning options. Alternative learning such as enhanced skill training has been related to a lower percentage of students to be incarcerated as adults. Curriculum revision. For curriculum revision, adding in local options to internship programs. This can help the school and community become closer. Students' opinions on prevention. Taking opinions from student leaders about delinquency prevention can pose a good inside perspective on the students. These leaders should not only be academic leaders, but also from various social groups. In relation to violence, if there is any indication that students could commit a violent act, a multidisciplinary team should be in contact about it. Threat assessment training can also prevent mass school shootings. For bullying, there are also bullying prevention programs. Successful bullying prevention programs include school-level interventions that work to change the overall culture and climate of the school. These interventions need to be done fully because they will not be successful if they are not complete. There is help in place for students with disabilities, which can minimize delinquency. An issue is that there needs to be improved teaching pool to advance education. This would lead to a decrease in delinquency since the students with disabilities are able to get the help they need instead of being ignored. And here are my references.